in the high school fairly early when a lot of people didn't even have a computer. So like, what's the days back then? Like, students and teachers.
I came here in 1986 to start the undergraduate program. This was just two master's degree programs and a PhD. And there were computers out because the IBM PC came out in 81, and the Mac came out in 84. So you're right, not many people had computers yet. And this, because we had no connection to the rest of the university really at the undergraduate level, and Syracuse University is a liberal arts college, liberal arts university. Primarily oriented toward undergraduates, about 12,000 a year. So I and the school had to learn about undergraduates in the undergraduate world. I was the 8th faculty member hired. Wow. Now we have over 50. So it's changed a lot.
Yeah, what was the classes back then? Like, so taught differently, or the material delivered?
Well, certainly taught differently because the internet was out then, but the web was not. The internet, up until the web came out, was really a few government researchers and a few academic researchers and computer science students.
Yeah, so more like hardware stuff, not like the software.
Well, there was all basically stuff that was ported from mainframes. There was no, the stuff that was being used on microcomputers at the time. Was really stuff that had been adapted from mainframe applications. Right. For example, I could be wrong about this, but I know that, for example, one of the main database programs that was being used back then, I'm trying to remember the name of it, was used from Boeing computer, and he asked them if he could use this on the smaller computers, and they said sure, because they didn't think that small computers were going to go anywhere. And he ended up making quite a bit of money off of that. And I do believe that the original Microsoft stuff was emulating mainframe. So there wasn't really much out there. I remember doing a program for NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, for a program to help humpback whales up in the Bering Sea in Alaska, Point Barrow. And I had to use a database program that was very, very primitive. It's called DataStar. And then the word processing program from the same company is called WordStar. They were very archaic type programs. You had to put in your own codes. It's almost like HTML. It had to mark up bold and mark up underline and mark up stuff. So it really wasn't until the advent of the web in 1995.
Yeah, but why you choose to get into this field?
Well, I'm a linguist.
Okay. Yeah, I read your resumes and stuff.
And I've lived in Asia, and I've lived in Europe, and I've lived in the United States. And I'm very interested in how it is that human beings create and exchange meaning. And so...
and I saw your resume said that you were a communication...
Right, I was in a school of communication.
Yeah, what do you see the IT related to the communication?
Well, for me, I was paying attention to the networks, not so much the computers. I didn't think the computers were that interesting, and indeed, the impact on the world has been the networks, not the computers. And so I was interested in the possibilities of people being able to help each other regardless of where they were physically. There was a communication scholar that you both should probably read, named Marshall McLuhan, whose mentor was from University of Toronto, Harold Innes. And they were interested in the way that the dominant communication technology affected the way people think. Of course, back then, when they were writing, back in the 60s, television had really just come out.
Yeah.
Right? And we know
television. Did people think computer will be the next big thing?
Oh yes. Well, the paranoia surrounding different technologies recurs every time we get a new technology. So we did it with film in the early 1900s, 1910s, paint fun studies at Princeton, and we did it for comic books, and then we did it for television. And we've done it a couple times for television. And certainly the web now is, now it's social media, not so much the web, it's social media, how social media going to warp children and what have you. So it's a recurring theme that people are concerned about the impact of it. But I was really interested in the possibility of a global village, which is a term that one of the early television announcers, Edward R. Murrow, who was a radio announcer during the Second World War, and he did some of the very first television news broadcasting. I remember one program that I've seen tapes of, I didn't see the actual program. He had a camera focused on the Atlantic Ocean in New York City, and he had a camera focused on the ocean in California, on the Pacific Ocean. And he said, this is the first time that anybody's ever been able to see, broadcast live, the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean in the same frame. Yeah. And so I've been working ever since I was a doctoral student on trying to understand how to use the networks to create opportunities for people to collaborate, for people to help each other.
So that's why you designed the class user-based design.
Well, one of the distinctions that I make that's different from what many of the communication and information people make is where the meaning is. They seem to think that the meaning is in the word, in the text, in the film or whatever. And as a linguist, I can tell you, just from my own personal experience, but certainly from a linguistic perspective, that we use symbols, language, sounds, objects, to point to co-orient with each other, to try to communicate. And the meaning is in us, not in the contact. And so I'm interested in a conversational metaphor for using this technology rather than the technology itself. And I'm definitely not interested in messaging, which is the current craze, right? I mean, that's what social media is. It's messaging. If you assume the meaning is in the word or in the content, then you can move it anywhere you want. But if you assume the meaning is in people, then it doesn't quite work that way. And it's too soon to tell, as you've heard. Homo connectus is really only now getting to be 20-ish.
Yeah.
And so...
so you think social media, online social network will still be the thing for like next 10 years?
No, I think that social media is really a function of industrial age thinking, not Homo connectus.
Okay.
And that when you guys get out and are engaged with more serious problems, professional problems, family problems, community problems, you are going to find ways to help each other be effective, and you're going to come up with different forms, different environments within which to use the networks to solve your problems, to make your decisions. And it's not going to look anything like social media. Social media is really just a conglomeration of tools that, because there's nothing else out there, and you have these cool toys, that you need something to play with. And so most of what I see going on with social media right now is of the gee whiz, stuff. I mean, even when I look at Obama's first election, when everybody, the young people in particular, Homo connectus in particular, got so excited because he was using social media to try to communicate with young people. And, it's very primitive. It's still messaging mentality as opposed to really a collaborating, a conversational relationship among the people who are participating. So I think it's very new. So it's not so much a fad, right? The networks will never go away now.
Yeah.
But the form of the networks and how they're employed by people to do the things that are interesting, fun, and useful are going to change radically when you guys get into running the show, and it won't be long.
Yeah, so we are going to take more advantage of the network.
Well, another way, let me say it another way, it might help. I see this stuff we call information as an artifact of people using technology to try to help each other. And so information, but is an attempt to communicate, but it doesn't work very well because it's very static. It's top down, right, up until the web. The means of production were all in the hands of large corporations or governments. I mean, you didn't publish your own books, you didn't make your own films.
Yeah.
Companies did that. It was very expensive. Now it's on the desktop, and anybody can make a film. Anybody can publish a book. But we never taught anybody how to write a book, really. Right? We just kind of fell into it since the 17th century.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be a little bit more deliberate this time. But you guys need to learn how to create environments or spaces or ways of allowing people to communicate, interact, not just send messages back and forth, because we can already do that and it's not doing a whole lot, right? Even though it's changed politics, it's changed education, it's changed commerce, right? It has had a dramatic impact, but nothing like what's going to happen when you guys actually become effective at employing digital artifacts, which includes both the content or these spaces, these collaborative spaces, and the technology. Because they're both artifacts. And the purpose is still the same. People are still trying to help each other. I mean, yeah, they're trying to make a buck too, but there's nothing wrong with making a buck, right? But
so it's more like eBay and people interact on there and like a market, people can
I think that's closer. That's closer.
Buy, yeah.
What we're trying to do in user-based design
stuff.
is an attempt to, and you'll see, we'll go into that a little bit more deeply today now that we're ready to start talking about these spaces, these environments. And so I think you're going to imagine some different ways of helping people help each other, and different economic models, right? Different institutions. I mean, and I'm speaking now of institution from modern institutional theory, which basically says that an institution is not a building or a place. It is a set of procedures, a set of behaviors that gets repeated because it's effective. And so we have the institution of president, which is not the person, it's not where he lives or she lives, it's what he or she does. So the institutions, the behaviors, the patterns and behavior that you guys are going to institute and follow for making your own decisions, solving your own problems, is going to be very different than it was for my generation. Right? It will be digital. And digital changes rapidly. It evolves rapidly. It's not static like books and films and what have you. And so that's one of the reasons why I use the metaphor of real estate development in the metaverse, because I'm trying to get you guys, we have no language for this, there's no example out there, but I'm trying to get you to think in terms of tools and environments and ways of bringing people together so they can solve problems, but it's not going to look like anything you've seen before because we don't have it. If anything, it looks like, I don't know, do you live in the dorm?
Yeah.
So maybe your floor or your RAs or some of the things you do in the dorm are closer to what I'm talking about.
Just bring those online.
People coming together and doing something where not everybody is right there. We're still face-to-face creatures. But it's amazing to me. I had students on Tuesday redesign a classroom for collaborative groups.
How do you
What kind of tables, what kind of chairs, what kind of whiteboards, what kind of projectors, etc. And they, in spite of the fact of them being homo connectus, it was all face-to-face. So that's still the way we think. We still are very much oriented toward face-to-face communicating, face-to-face collaborating. And so it's going to take a while. Like we're talking about a dramatic change in the ways that human beings can be present and helpful with each other. But it's much more than messaging. And so really all I can do in my role as researcher and teacher is to try to help you guys think in different ways. I don't have any right answers. I don't think there's any right answers to be had, right? There's no truth. There's no right or wrong here. It really is effectiveness.
usefulness. What can we